Our circumstances don't define us. Our actions do. We all have moments of impact. What are you going to do with yours? Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Living the Sweet Life. I'm your host, TJ Sweet, and on this podcast, we are committed to helping you reconnect with what matters most. We're going to help you do that by reshaping your mindset, looking at the world through a grateful lens, and living with intention. And as you know, your support and your commitment to this podcast means a lot to me, means a lot to our growth. So if you can, take a minute to hit that subscribe button so you get notifications every Monday when this episode comes out. It's the only way our show really grows. It gets to more audiences. We get more support. We get more exposure to more people who maybe need to hear the message that you're listening to today. So I want to say thank you for subscribing and for taking the time every Monday, every Mindset Monday, to grow and become your best. And that impacts us in every aspect of our life. So this week, I want to talk about something that's been super prevalent. It's been coming to me, right? So we pay attention to the things that are coming towards us. And sure, there's a little bit of we find what we're looking for, but there's also, are you aware enough to see what's coming, to actually pay attention to what's coming? Or are you consistently looking for proof of the past? Or are you looking for affirmation of the future? So this podcast this week is about this sense of becoming and shedding of, you've heard me say that a lot over the last few weeks, because I think that's a great starting point for all of us, is to understand what are we becoming, but we can't become something new without recognizing what we've been and maybe, just maybe, letting go of what was so that we can fully embrace everything that is and everything that's going to be. So through multiple conversations with some of my closest friends, and like I said, I draw inspiration from all of you. Every conversation, I'm very present. And a good friend of mine, we talked about this simple phrase about identity and identifying who you are, who you're becoming. And she phrased it in a way that really resonated with me, and it was instantly the name of this podcast. So as we go through becoming someone new, and I'm going to walk you through multiple scenarios, and even in my own life, of kind of telling ourselves a new story about who we are and what we're capable of, while also acknowledging that there's tension between internally from who we are to who we think we are versus who we want to be versus who we've been. There's just kind of this healthy tension all the time. If we don't call attention to it, we're going to naturally fall back to our previous patterns. So there's this thing. Now we're into February, closing in on March. And I don't know how you feel about New Year's manifestations, goals, resolutions that you've been working on, but there's a lot of like new year, new you kind of things that happen. And I don't disagree with that energy. I just think our human capacity, we have that ability to shift to that mindset anytime we want, not just January 1st. So if you didn't start your resolutions or manifestations or goals, or you aren't living this year with intention yet, maybe this is the starting point. But here's the twist that my friend said to me that really resonated with me, and it's a chapter that I'm going through right now too, is maybe the new you that you keep thinking about and you keep creating distance from, maybe the new you is the real you. Now, the first time when she said that, I was stopped in my tracks, and I thought, wow, the clarity that comes from not this distant stranger of new person, whenever we say new you, but what happens when you say the real you, it actually more affirms how you think about yourself more often, the things you say, the habits you have. Like, it creates this freedom. And I'm in this chapter of freedom and creativity and autonomy and strategic thinking and big thinking and risk taking and taking, full advantage of every opportunity I have in my life as I walked away from a healthcare administrator role. And now, as you have heard already, but keynote speaking full time and doing this podcast for you more often and coming up with new ways to deliver messages to you and writing books. And I have more books coming. It feels like I'm being my real self, like I'm not faking it or being the new me. I'm actually being more the real me. And if we settle into that space of the real version, the most authentic, you're going to hear that a lot, authentic version of you, it starts with you, one, recognizing who are you? Like, what does the real you look like? What does the best version of you sound like? What kind of habits does he or she have? Whenever we settle into that space, that's when it starts to feel a little different. But we have to identify that the new you is creating a distance because it feels unfamiliar. But the real you is the person that on those long car rides when you sit in silence, or maybe right before you go to bed, or maybe when you're in the shower, maybe when you're walking, it's that tension that you feel is the real you. And you deserve to be the most real version of you, because that's where your creativity comes from. That's when your patience and your grace and your love and your humility and your gratitude, all of that comes from, is when you're not trying to be something. You're just fully stepping in to being yourself. So as we go through this episode, as you can see, it's something that I'm working through. I think we always kind of work through. I'm not going to talk a lot about self-limiting beliefs today or imposter syndrome and all these other things, because again, that's kind of focusing on what we aren't. I want to talk more about self-belief and identifying more about your true self and honoring that. And, when you really start to acknowledge what you actually want, not what you think other people think you should want, or when you start pursuing things that light your soul and your heart and your energy and your mind on fire, when you start to focus on those things, that's when you show up as the best version of you, the most real version of you. It feels like you're in a state of flow. People talk about flow state all the time. So as we dive in, I want to think about, one, we have to set something down in order to pick something new up. Or maybe you have to set something down that's been having us distracted from recognizing who we actually are. So this idea of shedding, we've talked about this before, setting down, it's what weighs you down. It's a rewriting of the story. It's choosing the version of you that's been there all along. It's been there all along, and you know it. You've just put it aside. Some things have gotten in the way. You chose safety in the moment that felt safe. And we're going to talk about something else that in certain habits and certain chapters of our lives, staying where we are and choosing the habits we're choosing and all those things are keeping us safe, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're moving into a new chapter, maybe those things that used to keep you safe actually make you feel stressed and anxious. So if you've been feeling off track, you've been feeling a little kind of on cruise control, this episode, I hope for you, is that reset. I hope every episode that we do is a reset for you. It's learning something new and then applying. Because we can learn as much as we possibly can, but if we never actually apply anything, we're never really going to move closer to where we want to be. So it's not just enough to listen. When you sit down and you listen to these, or when you're driving and you listen to these, it's a matter of, I'm willing to do something to move closer to the thing that I want, the life that I want, the mindset, the shape, the finances, the career, whatever it is. It's the conviction to actually commit to doing something, which when you're in alignment with your true self feels like an opportunity. But when you're doing it based on what other people think of you, it'll feel like an obligation. So this episode's for you. We're going to help you reconnect with what matters most. And today, that thing that we're going to help you reconnect with is you. We're going to help you reconnect to yourself. I'm going to give you some stories of when I've needed to do this and how I've done this, but then also some frameworks to help you do this. Because again, like I just said, it's not just enough to learn. We have to be willing to take the action and trust ourselves that we can continue to learn, because you're already here. You've been doing this with me, with us, with this audience that's growing over 40 plus countries in the world. it's human. This applies to everybody, regardless of what you do, regardless of where you are. Finding your true self and living in that space and making choices that reflect that best version of you. And I know a lot of people say, a lot of people have this energy, which again, energy is a great start. It's a matter of conviction to actually do something about it. But a lot of people say, I want to become the new version. I'm becoming a new version of myself. And I get it. There's new habits and new mindsets and, new opportunities and new levels of life. There's levels to everything. And just saying like, I want a new life, whatever that may be. But what if I'm going to go back to the thing I said originally that my friend suggested for this name of this episode. But what if I told you something that might actually change the way you see growth? What if I said, name of this episode, maybe the new you is the real you. Maybe the new you is actually the real you, the most authentic version of yourself. And maybe the version you're trying, maybe the version of you that you're trying to become isn't some stranger. When you talk about a new person, it kind of feels like there's a disconnect and you don't know who it's unfamiliar. But maybe it's not somebody you have to invent. Think about that. The new person, the newest version of you isn't somebody you have to invent. Maybe it's the version of you that's been there the whole time. Just covered up by fear and doubt and anxiety and comfort and certainty, old stories and weight that you were never meant to carry. You probably chose to carry it once because it helped you in the moment, but then you never really remembered that you picked it up in the first place. Life can feel heavy. Sometimes it's an opportunity to carry something heavy for other people, but sometimes you also have to recognize that you're carrying something for other people and for yourself that may actually be preventing you from living the life of the most authentic version of you. But most people aren't stuck because they can't change. As I've worked with clients, I've been on stages, most people, it's not because they can't change. It's because they're living through this lens of an identity that was actually built in survival. It wasn't built through purpose. It was built through survival. There's chapters where surviving is the habit. But if we don't pay attention, we're not actually then stepping into purpose because we're still in this survival chapter. So it's like going from surviving to thriving. There's got to be purpose attached there. But so asking yourself, this is a powerful question, a couple questions here that it's right now, what are you leaving behind? If you're ready to become this most real version of you, not the new version of you, but the most real version of you, you have to ask, what am I leaving behind? What are you going to quit doing? And then what are you no longer going to need so that you can move to where you want to be? What are you no longer going to carry? What's in your backpack? Sam Dema, but he talks about this too. But you've heard this analogy about what you're carrying in your backpack. What's in your backpack that's wearing you down that originally kept you alive? That was great for survival, but you no longer need. And now it's just slowing you down or keeping you back. So today I want you to think deep about the story, the real story that you're telling yourself, not the one that you want me to hear about, not the one that you tell your friends that you think about, but what's the story that you're actually telling yourself about what you're capable of and who you are, and what things do you need to let go of? How do you need to believe in yourself again? And how can you step into the real you, without waiting, like we talked about last couple episodes, but without needing and waiting for that wake-up call? Because there's oftentimes on the side of adversity, the times of heartbreak, the times of just total stress and anxiety and worry, that's when people seek to become this new version of themselves, but it's actually just the version they've been all along. They just haven't shown enough self-respect and self-love to actually choose that person. And for different reasons. This show isn't about judgment. This podcast isn't about judgment or shame. It's about recognition and power. Power. Now, let's talk about why, right? Why do you stay the same? Why do I stay the same? Why do we stay in this comfort zone? It's a very human thing to seek comfort, right? Even homeostasis, our bodies seek a certain temperature. But our habits are going to follow our identity. Okay, so just paying attention to what your identity is going to cultivate your habits. And your identity is shaped by the story, right, that you tell yourself, the words you use. And some people are living, I work with a lot of different clients, and this is, no matter how successful they are, this is something that comes up for everybody. But whenever I ask them, why haven't they accomplished their goals? Or how did you get to this place that you're wanting to change? A lot of things I hear are, I'm not consistent, I can't stick with something, I always mess it up, I get really close to the finish line, then I stop. And some people then continue to say, I'm a worrier, not warrior. I'm just an anxious person. I'm not the type of person who, that's one of my most common things that I hear is, I'm not the type of person who. And then sometimes it's that's just who I am, which is sometimes true, most of the time not. That's who I am is actually more, that's who I've been. So what are you saying right now when you just say that's just who I am? You kind of make it sound like you're not growing. But if you're listening to this podcast, I know that's not you, because you aren't just the way you are. You are learning and growing and becoming, and it's not becoming someone new. It's becoming the most real version of you. And maybe some of those things, again, at some point that I just said about not being consistent and all that, maybe those things were true at some point, but that's not who you are. It's a habit you've been choosing. But a lot of what you've been calling is truth are things that you've been saying a lot and thinking a lot that you then made true. There's two separate things there. You've made them true because you focused on them and you keep repeating them. But if we think about something long enough, we actually start to believe it's true. So imagine, right? While that thought is fresh, what are the new things that you could say about yourself that then could become true? I'm okay with, if you want to, we can have discussions about how your mindset, it hasn't been shaping your life and all these different things. But if you are not paying attention to it, it is shaping your life. And then you're not going to move closer to where you want to be, because our minds are powerful and it can keep you in a negative place, a negative state, a stuck state, a fixed mindset. You can stay there, or you could choose the other one. They're both just equally as powerful. We just have to be aware of which one's actually ruling our life. But growth isn't just about doing new things. That's oftentimes what we think about. It's just about doing new things. It's also about becoming someone new. It's not just the habit. It's the how we feel about ourselves. It's the becoming someone new. Oh, you know what? It's actually more about coming back to who you really are. Like coming back to a familiar friend. Like I've been able to connect with so many people in my life that even if I haven't seen them, like I have a friend that lives up the street here. I haven't seen him in 30 plus years, and we connected, and it was like we just talked, and we haven't talked in decades. But when you have like real connection with people, and you come from a place of just caring about somebody, like that's who you authentically are. There isn't a habit of performance and trying to, make up a new identity about your life. You just show up as you. And one of the things that, as I was preparing for this episode and thinking deep about kind of how has this shown up in my life, really understanding, like there's been moments in my life that I felt like I had two versions of me that existed at the same time. I have people that see me as this hyper-disciplined, I talk about my workouts, I talk about all these things, but like nutrition's always been a struggle for me. And so I have this like high-performing nature, but there's something about food that I haven't really cracked the code yet. I don't really have an emotional relationship with food, as actually describes my relationship with food. But I've always been in this kind of performance mindset in my life because I portray that. And that's just one example of me wanting to be something, but really not doing the work internally to actually be who I really am, so that people who are my mentors and my coaches can really get to know the real me. Like what's actually going on here. And so whenever you start owning things and you start tracking things and you start telling people the truth about it, then obviously, you feel like you're becoming the more real you. But it's also a matter of, you don't have to fake it. If you show up as your real self, you're going to actually then allow people to see you, and we all want to be seen. And the other version of this that has shown up in my life is I've been a leader and a speaker. I've been a leader and a speaker. I've kind of been living in two different places. People ask me all the time, why aren't you a speaker full-time, healthcare leader? It's like being a CEO of a health system. That for me in my brain was two different mindsets. But what made me make the shift was recognizing what makes me feel like the most authentic version of me, that makes me want to grow, that makes me want to wake up early and stay up late and pour into people and just do all the things. What lights me up? Not because somebody else thinks I should do it, because that's how I got into my healthcare careers. I had so many great mentors that were encouraging me and helping me believe in what I was capable of, which is great. But when it comes time to really think, and I'm grateful for them, truthfully, because I pursued the things that I pursued. I wouldn't be sitting here if they didn't believe in me. But sometimes other people believe in you based on a version that they see of you, not the full you, because I wasn't really revealing my full self. But whenever I started to pursue speaking over 10 years ago, people took a chance on me. I started to recognize, they started to see what I was capable of and how much passion I had for it. And then whenever I finally acknowledged what was making me feel like the most real version of me, I took the step. There's still little micro doubts along the way, but I took the step to show up as the most real version of me for this world. And it's through the speaking, it's through the podcasting, it's through the books, it's through the human connection, it's through gratitude and purpose. That's the most real version of me. Now, how I get to do that in this world will change, but what I'm going to be doing and how I'm going to show up is going to be authentic to me. And it's going to be showing myself to the real world. But I knew I wanted to live on purpose. I know I want to show up with gratitude. And I know I want to be more present with the people I love. Like I said, what are your I knows? I know I want something. I know I want to show up in a certain way. I know how I want to think and live and feel, all that. But I got distracted along the way. I've been speaking for 10 years and just now deciding to show up as my real authentic version of myself, not trying to perform on stage, but trying to be present with every single person that I get to meet. And life gets busy, life gets loud, all these different things. But then you kind of stop and wonder, and maybe this question will be relevant for you in your story. But you start to think, how did I get so far from my real self? And you sometimes need to become your real self to understand that you've gotten far from it. You need to pay attention to the moments when you feel aligned so that you can recognize misalignment. That's just part of human life. So that's perspective. The misalignment can actually point you to alignment. And when you're in alignment, you can also then recognize what things make you not feel the way you want to be feeling. But the real you doesn't disappear. I didn't become a new person overnight. Sometimes the real version of us just gets a little buried, of which in my own brain now makes me think about being planted. Maybe the real version of me needed to be nurtured and watered and cultivated the way that it was so that it could bloom and blossom into this version that is becoming. I'm nowhere near where I'm going to be, but I feel like I'm the most real, authentic version of myself. So the goal isn't to create this brand new you. Again, that creates a gap. It creates cognitive dissonance because you don't really have a sense of new person. But maybe the goal is to just really uncover the most real version of you. So now I want to walk you through this framework. And it's going to be kind of one thing you can apply and then kind of walk you through how to start to feel like you're living the life of the most real version of you. So the first step is going to be to shed what weighs you down. So if you want a new life, you're going to need a lighter load. You're going to have to take some things out of your backpack and ask yourself, what am I carrying? What are you carrying right now that you don't need anymore? And some of that's going to be, it's going to be hard. It's going to be heavy. But what belief about yourself is heavy and now outdated? This is going to take a lot of reflection because you have to, one, recognize how you got here, where you currently are, before you can take that next step forward, with intention at least. So also ask yourself, what habit that used to give you structure now feels exhausting? That habit that you were using to survive, now when you're trying to thrive, it feels different. It feels like an obligation instead of something affirming who you are. So what friendships and relationships that used to feel stable now feel misaligned? This is also part of recognizing the real you And some people come into your life for seasons. Sometimes they come in for lessons, and sometimes they come in for life. But either way, we take a piece of everybody for the rest of our lives. And so I'm fortunate enough to have, a really small circle of great people in my life. I haven't really had to, I haven't had the opportunity to spend a ton of time in person with a lot of my friends, though. But there are people in your life right now that are not aligned, that maybe don't see you in a way they need to see you, that you need them to see you. They don't feel aligned. Maybe it's relationships, maybe it's friendships. I'm not sure what it is for you. But recognizing that the people we surround ourselves with directly impact how we see ourselves, but also helps show us who we're around, will help kind of determine where we're going to be going. But then I also have to stop and think about like what identity. So it's not shame and regret and judgment, but what identity brought me like this state of flow before? What was I thinking and feeling and doing all the things? Being a CEO of a health system brought me this really high energy and creativity and made me pursue things. But then when I decided that I am going to be a keynote speaker, worldwide podcast host, best-selling author, it had nothing to do with the title of any of that. It had everything to do with being the most true version of myself and connecting and giving back to people. It's for others, but I've recognized that that's what I'm aligned with. But I did fall out of alignment for a little while. Doesn't mean that I wasn't enjoying what I was doing, but I also then have to recognize like what was I holding on to that was making me play small, that I wasn't willing to take a risk on myself, that I wasn't believing in myself. I've had a lot of amazing people in my life say that they believe in me, but unless you start believing in yourself, you're never actually going to take the actions that look like self-belief. That's my personal story. You don't have to level up by adding more. Sometimes you have to level up by removing some things and letting go of some things that are holding you back. So now the second thing, after we work on shedding, letting go, releasing, acknowledging, is to really shift. Shift the story that you're telling yourself, and the story that you, like we've talked about before, like we talked about last week about state of mind, but the story kind of becomes our state, and the state becomes our actions, how we feel in our energy. If you wake up in the morning and say, it's going to be a great day, I'm going to get my exercise in, I'm super excited for connections at work, I'm super excited to pour into other people, I'm going to listen to a podcast, I'm going to grow, I'm going to help somebody. If you wake up like that, versus, man, I'm not in the mood to go to work today. I just want to get home and go to bed. Your state will determine your actions. Two things can be true, but you have to acknowledge how you want to be living. All right, we all have peaks and valleys in our days for sure. So peak and pit, we definitely have that as well in our lives. But really, this is probably the most authentic, most powerful question that I've asked myself in reflection while I journal. What would the real you say about you? Like, what advice would you give to somebody who was in your space? What advice would you give yourself? We're so quick to give advice to other people because we see them in a certain way, but we sometimes forget how to see ourselves. So what advice, what would the real you say about you? Not the scared you, not the hurt you, not the defensive you. Again, those are parts of us. But if we're not careful, they'll become the more full version, right, of our day. They'll become full in our mindset and full in our heart if we're not careful. But what is the real you? The new version of you starts with a new sentence. That's how close we are. New version of you starts with a new sentence. That may have been, you can even say this about anything that you want in your life. That may have been true then, but it's not true now. The real you may have been true then. It was true then, but it's not now. Sometimes that's the most powerful sentence. It used to be true about me, but it's not now. And then step into the evidence of it. Step 3 is the step into the evidence. What is actually true? Belief isn't like built through hype, right? You've heard me talk about, we're not talking about hype here. We're talking about habits. So belief isn't built in just all of the hype. It's built through proof. We have to see it in order for us to actually take the next step. So it's built in proof. Ask different questions, different what if questions, instead of what if I fail, or what if I offend somebody, or what if I don't succeed, or what if I don't know how to do it? What if I look like a beginner? What if I'm not good at it? What if you stop asking those questions and start asking some more meaningful questions around what if and then possibilities, not what if and then fear? So ask yourself, what if you actually did succeed? What if you did fly if you took the leap? What if you did succeed? What if you learned new skills? Think about the what ifs and then something powerful, something affirming who you are and something that you actually want. What if you had everything that you've dreamed about? What would you do? How does that feel? How does that feel to say that? Keep one promise to yourself keep one promise to yourself today. Just one. And maybe it's your new sentence. Maybe incantation's a powerful thing. Maybe you just say the new sentence. It used to be true, but it is no longer true. This is my truth. This is who I am. This is my real version. And if you feel that tension of like, it feels like a fake, really sit into what is it that you actually want and why haven't you been doing it? Because every time you don't do what you said you were going to do, including at the end of this episode, your brain sends a message that says, every time you do something that you said you were going to do, your brain sends a message of like, okay, this is somebody I can trust. You probably have a best friend that you trust will do what they say they're going to do. Today, now, reconnect with yourself and make a promise to yourself and keep that one promise, because when you start to do that, your brain will start to recognize that you're becoming someone that you can trust. And self-trust is the foundation to the real you. Now, the last thing I want to do, this is step 4, is really reconnect you to what matters most. Reconnecting to yourself so that you can show up for yourself and for the people that you love. The real you is the version of you that notices the good, that you live aligned, and that you show up for real people. The real you is the version of you that shows up in gratitude, purpose, and connection. You don't need a new personality and a new alignment. You just, it's the real you that sees the good, because you do in moments. Even the most negative people recognize something, right? They're paying attention to something. And sometimes it's a positive thing, but they don't want to talk about it because it goes against how they see themselves. And then they're not really sure on how to embrace the new version of them. Maybe it's that version of you, that grateful, loving, kind, connection-seeking, purpose-driven, has been trying to get your attention all along. Maybe those are those little moments of insight. Maybe it's somebody on your shoulder. My friend Sherry Riley, as you know, she was on this podcast. She kept talking about there's a TJ on her shoulder, talking about gratitude and all these things. But that's actually who she is. So when she tells me that, I know that's who she actually is. It's just I'm grateful that I get to be a part of her life at all, and that I get to be somewhat of a powerful reminder of who she actually is through the lens of gratitude. So what I want you to do, again, that's the framework, but what I want you to do now is think about it, put it in your notes, make a voice memo, write it down, talk about it with a friend. I want 2 lists. I want you to create 2 lists. This is the action, right? So wisdom or information becomes wisdom whenever we start applying some energy and effort to it. So I want you to write down 2 lists. The first list is, what are you going to shed? What are you going to set down? 3 things that are weighing you down right now. You have to be real, have to be vulnerable about it. And then the second list is, who are you becoming? 3 identity statements. Let me give you a couple that are relevant for me. So my 3, as I did this, as I was preparing for this episode, is I'm shedding perfectionism and I'm becoming consistent. Those are my 2. Then I'm shedding shame and I'm becoming courageous. And then I'm shedding distraction and I'm becoming present. You see how I offered both perspectives? It's a matter of like, what am I setting down so that I can pick up something else that aligns with really who I am? And then choose one small action that matches that person you're becoming, the I am becoming statement. Do something that matches that every day. Don't think about the whole year. Think about today and just commit to it today. It's less threatening for the brain. It's more energizing for your body. But that's how you start to then recognize the real you. When you say I'm becoming something and then it becomes easy and free and it's energy giving, you'll start to recognize that that state is actually you being you. It's not becoming something new. It's becoming the real you. So as I wrap up here, I want to give you some encouragement and some truths that I've learned over my life, my own personal experience, that I've seen people in life start to tell themselves a new story. But you don't have to wait for life to force you to change. You can choose it. You don't have to wait for the wake-up call. You can choose it. You don't have to become someone completely different. That's going to be hard to think about and hard for the people around you. You don't have to become something completely different. I've said it a bunch. It came into my life this last week in a couple different ways. Maybe the new you is actually the real you. The you without the weight. The you without that old story. The you that believes in you and believes in your capabilities and believes in love, believes in patience and kindness and gratitude and purpose and connection, and believes in yourself again. And it's also the person, the you, that shows up again. That real you is the one that shows up for yourself and for the people that you love in a way that you're proud of and the way that you're excited about. And so my hope for you is that you don't have to wait for the wake-up call. You'll hear me say this on every episode and on every stage. My hope for you is that you don't have to wait for that wake-up call to reconnect with what matters most, but that you choose it, that you notice it first, then you honor it, then you live it, starting today. All right. If this episode has resonated with you, please share it with others. Give me a comment. Tell me some of the things that you're shedding, some of the things that you're becoming. Show up with action, because when you type those things and you put it out there, it's the real you. It's not the you behind the scenes. It's the real you taking control of that steering wheel. You are the main character in your story. And I hope you hit subscribe so that you get notifications when these come out. Again, that helps me, helps the show as we continue to grow for you. All right. So as I wrap up, the reminder to go live with intention, grateful, purposeful, and connected. I'll see you next week.